AITA for being furious my wife became her twin's surrogate against my wishes? Now, she and her family are begging me, but I am clear, it is not my baby. It is not my problem. I still have a hard time processing it. Sometimes, my future ex-wife Megan and I are technically still married, but only for legal reasons. In our state here in North Carolina, you have to be separated for 12 months before you can finalize the divorce, which frankly only prolongs the inevitable. During this so-called cooling-off period, she was supposed to find her own apartment nearby to facilitate the 50-50 joint custody of our 3 children and keep them in the same school district. Why are we divorcing? Well, the idea came from Rachel, Megan's twin sister. Megan would become her surrogate. Apparently, Rachel and her husband Tyler had been struggling to have children. I understand it was a difficult situation for them. But instead of pursuing traditional surrogacy options, adoption, or any other path, they decided that since Megan and Rachel are identical twins, Megan was the perfect candidate to carry their baby. The worst part is that I did not even know about the plan until much later. It turns out they had been organizing this for weeks without me suspecting a thing. It is not like they sat down with me to have a real conversation. No, that would have been too logical. Instead, Megan mentioned it nonchalantly as if it were something insignificant. I remember perfectly how it happened. We were sitting on the couch in our suburban living room, and she just dropped it like that. I thought about doing something very important for Rachel, she said, scrolling through her phone as if we were talking about what we were going to eat for dinner. What kind of important thing? I asked, glancing at her. She finally looked up. I am going to be her surrogate. At first, I thought she was joking. I laughed, waiting for the punchline, but she looked at me as if she expected me to be happy. I sat up straight. You are going to carry their baby? She nodded, smiling as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Rachel and Tyler have been trying for so long, and since we are identical twins, it is practically like Rachel carrying her own child. My stomach sank. Megan, are you serious? When did this start? She shrugged. A few weeks ago. We have been talking about it for a while. I looked at her, trying to digest it all. And you did not think you should talk to me about it first? Megan sighed, putting down her phone. It is my body, she challenged me. I do not need permission. Megan, we are married. This is a huge decision that affects both of us. How could you not discuss it with me first? She rolled her eyes. I am telling you now. Great. Now, after you have already made the decision. Is that how it works in a marriage? Her expression hardened. Listen, I knew you were going to react like this, which is why I waited. But it is happening, Brandon. I exhaled, shaking my head. So that is it. Either I fall in line or what? Or maybe we should reconsider things, she said with her arms crossed. And there was the ultimatum. She did not say it directly, but the message was clear. Either accept it or the marriage is in trouble. I could not believe it. It was not just the surrogacy that bothered me, even though that was already huge, but that all of this had been planned behind my back. Megan, Rachel, and Tyler had plotted for weeks, maybe months, without even warning me. And now, I was supposed to be okay with it. I looked at her for a long time. If you were just going to. Her face twisted in frustration. You are so irrational. No, Megan, irrational is making a decision that will change our lives without even considering me. You do not think that is a problem. She shook her head, exasperated. I am doing something wonderful for my sister. I thought you would understand. I stood up, running a hand through my hair. Well, I guess I do not. Fast forward a few months, and guess what? She is pregnant. When she told me, I just nodded and said, okay. Then I walked out of the room. 2 days later, I filed for divorce. I had already prepared the paperwork since the week she told me about her plan. I was just waiting to see if she would actually go through with it. Apparently, this surprised everyone. Megan acted like she did not see it coming, which left me dumbfounded. She really thought I was bluffing, that I would magically end up accepting it and putting up with my wife carrying someone else's child. I had told her exactly what would happen if she went ahead with it, and now she was pretending to be surprised. Rachel and Tyler were no better. They tried to emotionally manipulate me into staying by using every possible cliché. You are abandoning your wife, Rachel said, shaking her head as if I were a heartless person. She needs your support now more than ever. I laughed dryly. She is the one who made this decision, not me. Tyler, always in mediator mode, tried to smooth things over. Brandon, What she is doing for us is a generous thing. Do you not see that? Yes, I see it, I said, crossing my arms. I see that you wanted a baby and that Megan decided to carry it without even talking to me first. That is not a marriage. That is not a partnership. It is a decision she made, and now she has to face the consequences. Rachel said, you swore to support her no matter what. And she swore to respect me and not make life-altering decisions behind my back. I replied. And here we are. So there it was. I filed the papers, and the separation officially began. At first, Megan acted like it did not bother her. She kept this attitude of moral superiority as if she were above it all. I do not need you, she said one evening after I told her I would no longer talk about the subject. I can handle this on my own. Perfect, I said. Then do it. But as the months went by, reality caught up with her. Suddenly, she was no longer so sure. She was no longer in control. After I filed for divorce, the tension in the house became unbearable. Megan started acting as if nothing had changed, as if I should still care about her pregnancy or worse, as if I should be involved in one way or another. Meanwhile, I had already checked out mentally. Why would I invest energy in a pregnancy that was not mine? A pregnancy that was exactly the reason we were splitting up. And of course, she did not move out. Finding an affordable apartment in our area was not easy, especially while pregnant. She kept saying she wanted to stay close for the kids. But let us be honest, it was out of convenience. Every time she needed something, she still expected me to act like her husband. One night, she walked into the living room while I was watching TV. Can you run to the grocery store for me? Pickles and maybe some ice cream. I scoffed. That is not my job anymore. She sighed as if I were being unreasonable. It is just a quick drive. I finally looked at her. Megan, I am no longer your husband in that way. Go ask Rachel or Tyler. She clenched her jaw but did not say anything. She just turned around and left. Over the weeks, she dropped more and more hints about how difficult it was, how stressful, how much she had to do alone. At first, I simply ignored it. What did she expect? That I would come rescue her like I had done during her previous pregnancies? Those were our children. This one was her and her sister's decision. I had not agreed to any of this. Eventually, the hints turned into direct complaints. I do not know how I am going to do this without you, she said one evening, rubbing her belly as if that would make me feel guilty. I barely looked up from my computer. Call Tyler. She sighed in frustration. It is not fair that I have to go through this alone. I closed my laptop and looked at her. Fair? You really want to talk about fairness? Because I do not think it was fair to make this decision without me. But here we are. She did not answer. She just pursed her lips and looked away. I kept repeating the same thing to her. Rachel and Tyler were the ones who wanted this baby. They were the ones who had promised that this surrogacy experience would be wonderful, that they would do their part. But of course, most of the time, they were not there. Tyler, in particular, seemed to gradually disappear. He would show up for the important things, medical appointments, some shopping, but on a daily basis, he was absent. One night, out of pure curiosity, I asked Megan, where is Tyler lately? He was supposed to be completely involved in this. He is taking care of Rachel, she said, looking uncomfortable. She is still recovering from her car accident. Okay, I will admit that. But it is not like he did not know this baby was coming. Should he not have planned for it? Megan's expression tightened. He is doing his best. He is very stressed right now. Being an overwhelmed father of two did not help. She did not want to admit it, but Tyler's priorities had clearly shifted. He had an easy way out, and he was taking advantage of it. Meanwhile, Megan was leaning more and more on me, as if I had an obligation to take on the supportive role. She started asking me for little favors, carrying the groceries in from the car, putting together the crib, even rubbing her back when she was in pain. Can you help me with this? No, it is not my child. It is not my problem. One night, things finally reached a breaking point. She was sitting on the couch, rubbing her belly and sighing dramatically, clearly to get my attention. I ignored her as much as possible, but finally, she spoke. You know, she said with a voice full of irritation. You are still my husband. You could at least pretend to care. That was the last straw. I lost my patience. No, I am no longer your husband in that sense. No, I do not care in the slightest, I said, standing up. You made your decision when you chose to proceed with the surrogacy behind my back. Do not come to me now just because you realize it is harder than you thought. Call Tyler, call Rachel, call literally anyone, but leave me out of it." Her face crumpled, and just like that, the tears started. That had become her automatic reaction whenever things did not go her way. But at this point, I was immune to it. "I am going to bed," I said coldly, walking away while she stayed on the couch sobbing. The following weeks were more of the same. She kept trying to emotionally manipulate me into helping her, and I refused every time. It was not just about setting boundaries for myself, although that was important. It was also a matter of principle. If I started helping now, even a little, Megan would take it as a sign that I was giving in, and then I would never be able to break free from her demands. Things took another turn when the baby was born. I stayed completely out of it. I did not go to the hospital. I did not visit at all. I had told her in advance that I would not be involved. So it was not like she did not know. Yet, she called me from the hospital, crying and begging me to come. "Brandon, please, I do not want to do this alone." I kept my voice firm. "You decided to proceed with the surrogacy despite my warnings. That decision was yours. So do not drag me into it. Tyler is the father. You had better call him." She let out a sob. "I did. He is not answering." "Then call Rachel. Call your mother." "It is a no." "You are being so cold," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. I sighed. "No, Megan, I am keeping my word. You knew where I stood since before any of this happened." She did not answer. A second later, the call dropped. When she came home with the baby, that is when the real chaos began. It was as if she thought bringing the baby home would magically make me care. It did not. She started leaving baby things everywhere, bottles in the kitchen, diapers on the couch, as some kind of way to force me to acknowledge it. But I did not give in. I just avoided the mess and went about my day. At night, it was even worse. The baby would cry, and she would come knock on my door. At first, I thought maybe she was just exhausted. Frustrated, I said, "For goodness sake, it is 3 o'clock in the morning. I have not slept in days. Your baby, your problem. Now go take care of it." There was a long silence. Then I heard her stomp away down the hallway. The next day, she was slamming cabinets and muttering under her breath about what a terrible person I was. I will admit there were moments when I felt a twinge of guilt. Not because I thought I was doing the wrong thing, but because the baby was innocent in all this. It was not the child's fault that the adults had made such complicated choices. But at the same time, I knew that stepping in would not really help. It would just allow Megan to continue depending on me instead of turning to the people who actually wanted this baby from the start. The breaking point came when Megan directly demanded that I take a more active role. "You cannot just act like this does not exist," she snapped one night, standing in front of me with the baby in her arms. "It is not fair that I have to do everything alone." I barely looked up from my computer. "Then call Tyler." I did. "He is busy with Rachel again." I shrugged. "It is not my baby. It is not my problem." Her eyes blazed with frustration. "You are so selfish. You owe me at least this." That caught my attention. I set the laptop aside and stared at her. "I do not owe you anything. You act as if I betrayed our marriage," she yelled. I stood up and replied, "You disrespected me by proceeding with the surrogacy and carrying their child despite my clear objections. I warned you. I was against it, and that has consequences. You said it was your body, your decision. Well now, it is my life and my decision too. It is your responsibility. Own it." That was it. That was the moment she finally broke. "You are being heartless," she said. "One day, you are going to regret this." She stormed out, and for a moment, I thought it was over. But an hour later, she came back with a bag on her shoulder and the baby bundled in her arms. "I cannot keep going like this," she said with a trembling voice. "Not with your attitude." I just nodded. She looked at me for a long time, waiting as if she believed I was going to try and stop her. I did not. 2 days later, Megan left with the baby. I thought, finally, maybe this is the break I need. I was not naive enough to think she was gone forever. But for a few days, the house was silent. No crying, no blaming, no arguing. I felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. But of course, nothing stays simple when Megan is involved. The call started the next morning. First her mother, then her sister. Yes, the same sister who had orchestrated everything. Even her sister's husband called. It was as if they had coordinated a campaign to wear me down. They all had the exact same speech. Megan was overwhelmed. The baby was innocent, and I needed to step up for the sake of the family. Rachel, her twin sister, was particularly persistent. She left me a long voicemail loaded with condescension. "I cannot believe how cold you are, Brandon," she said in a sharp tone. "Megan just gave birth, and you left her at the most vulnerable moment of her life. Do you even care?" I scoffed and deleted the message without replying. What was the point? This was not a surprise pregnancy that we had both committed to. It was Megan's decision. A decision she made without consulting me, and a decision I explicitly told her I would not support. Then Tyler, the baby's biological father, called. He tried to play the compassion card with a voice full of fake sincerity. "Man, things are really tough right now," he said on the phone. "Rachel is still recovering from the accident, and Megan is struggling. We are all family. We should support each other." I almost laughed at the audacity. "Family," I repeated, incredulous. "Are you joking? You barely lifted a finger during the pregnancy, and now you want to act like we are a team." "That is not fair," he protested. "Make an effort." I cut him off. "This has nothing to do with me. Take care of your own child." Then Megan's mother called. She is usually pretty reasonable, but this time she was on Megan's side. When she called, her voice was full of disappointment. I interrupted her, my voice calm but firm. She stopped being my wife the moment she decided to carry another couple's child against my wishes. "If you care so much, maybe you are the one who should help her." Silence. Then a soft click as she hung up. I think that is when they finally understood. I was not going to give in. A few days later, Megan came back. I knew she would eventually return, but I was not prepared for the spectacle she brought. She walked in as if she had not criticized me on the phone earlier. The baby was strapped to her chest in a carrier, her face exhausted but defiant. You could see she came ready for another round. "We need to talk," she said, standing in the middle of the living room. I did not even look up from what I was doing. "About this," she gestured toward the baby. "You cannot ignore us forever." "I have been very clear," I said, crossing my arms. "This is your responsibility, not mine." That was enough to launch her into another endless speech about how hard it was to manage as a new mother in this situation, how unfair it was to have to do everything alone. She said things like, "This is not what I expected, and I never thought you would turn your back on me like this." I just sat there and let her talk. What was the point of arguing? She was not looking for a solution. She just wanted someone to blame. When she finally stopped, I looked at her and said, "You signed up for this the moment you decided to carry their baby. Do not act like this is my fault." That made her explode. She started raising her voice, her face twisted in frustration. "You are being so cruel, Brandon. You have no idea what I am going through. You think this is easy for me? One day, you are going to regret this." The baby started crying, probably because of the raised voices. She turned to me, exclaiming, "Are you just going to sit there? Do something." I shrugged. "It is not my baby. It is not my problem." Her face turned red with anger, and she stormed off into the bedroom, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. The baby kept crying, but I did not move. If she wanted to make a scene, fine. But I was not going to let her dump her problems on me. That night, she tried a different tactic. Instead of arguing, she came into the kitchen while I was making dinner and acted nice. She leaned against the counter, watching me cook. Her voice was softer, almost hesitant. "I miss how things used to be," she said after a long silence. I kept chopping vegetables without looking at her. "You say that," I sighed as she took a step closer. "I mean it, Brandon. I still love you. I want us to be a family again." I scoffed. "A family?" I turned to her, raising an eyebrow. "We were a family, and you ruined it by making this choice." She swallowed hard. "I made a mistake." I set the knife down and crossed my arms. "Yes, you did." She nodded. Then she took a deep, trembling breath. "I am sorry." She actually apologized. In a way, she said she regretted how things had turned out, but she still did not fully take responsibility for her decisions. I did not buy it. "That ship has already sailed," I told her in a flat voice. "You made your decision, now you have to live with it." She started crying again. Her shoulders shook as she sobbed. "I do not want a divorce. I cannot do this alone." I exhaled. I was already tired of the conversation. "You do not have to do it alone," I told her. "You have Rachel and Tyler." But that was not what she wanted to hear. She did not want their help. She wanted mine. She wanted me to show up and fix everything like I had always done before. But not this time. I turned to her and said, "You do not want a divorce? Not because you love me. You proceeded with this surrogacy despite my warnings. That tells me a lot about your priorities. You do not want a divorce because I provide stability. You just do not want to lose that. But listen to me. Get used to dealing with the consequences on your own. The divorce is already filed, and soon, that stability will change too." That night, when I went to bed, I could hear her crying in the next room. I did not feel good about it, but I did not feel bad either. I felt nothing. And right then, I knew for sure that it was all over. Any love or connection that had been there had been reduced to ashes by her decisions. The next morning, she tried one last desperate move. She came to me with dark circles under her eyes and the baby in her arms. "Please," she whispered in an exhausted voice. "Just hold her for a moment so I can get some sleep. I have not slept more than 2 hours in days." For a second, I almost gave in. But then I thought about everything that had brought us here, how she had gone behind my back, how she had broken my trust, how she had dragged me into a situation I had never agreed to. "No," I said. Her eyes widened. "What?" "Call Tyler," I told her. "He is the father. He is the one who should help you." She looked as if I had hurt her deeply. Her lip trembled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You really feel that strongly against me, huh?" I shook my head. "I do not hate you," I said firmly. "But I am not going to let you pull me back into cleaning up this situation. It is not my responsibility, and I am done pretending that it is." She left again after that, and this time I think it was for good. Her mother called me later to tell me that Megan was staying at her place for now. I told her that was probably for the best. Maybe now I would finally have some peace. 3 days after Megan left for the second time, things settled down a bit. The house was quiet, yes, but it did not feel peaceful. There was this constant feeling, a tightness in my chest like the calm before the storm, and I was not wrong. About a week after she left, the letters and emails started pouring in. Megan's family was on full attack. Not just the usual attempts at emotional manipulation, I knew those by heart, but full-blown lectures. It was as if they were trying to wear me down through sheer persistence. Megan's mother wrote me an endless letter, telling me I was being unfair, that family should always come first, and that I needed to step up. She went on about how difficult Megan's childhood had been, about everything she had sacrificed, and how I owed her. I read it, sighed, and threw it in the trash. What was I supposed to do with that? It said nothing new. They had decided I was the villain, and at this point, it was just noise. Rachel and Tyler, on the other hand, opted for a more direct approach. Tyler showed up at my house unannounced one afternoon. When I opened the door and saw him standing there looking uncomfortable, I knew nothing good was going to come of it. "Hey man," he said, trying to sound casual. "Can we talk?" I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "About what?" He shifted uncomfortably. Finally, he sighed. "About the baby. About everything, really." I did not move. "Say what you need to say." He looked surprised, as if he thought I was going to invite him in. He started talking nonstop about how hard everything had been since Rachel's accident, how he was trying to juggle everything, and how he really needed me to help out with Megan. "For Megan," I repeated, cutting him off sharply. My voice was firm, and I saw him flinch. "This has nothing to do with me. It is your child. Your wife's sister agreed to this knowing exactly what it meant. Why are you here?" He looked confused. "It is not just the baby, it is family. We are all connected in this." I gave a short, joyless laugh. "No, we are not." He opened his mouth, but I did not let him continue. "You, Rachel, and Megan made all these decisions behind my back. You excluded me, and now you act like I owe you something. Get real." He tried to argue, but I did not let him. "Leave," I said, stepping back into the house. "And do not come back unless it is to take full responsibility for your child." He did not like my answer, but he did not have many options. He stood there for a moment with his jaw clenched, then muttered something about how I would regret it before turning around and walking away. Maybe I will regret it, maybe not. Either way, it is not my problem. Meanwhile, Megan was still at her mother's house, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe she was starting to understand. But no. Instead, she started using the kids as leverage. One night, she called to ask if she could come spend some time with them. I said yes because they were still her kids, and I was not going to keep them from their mother. But when she arrived, it was obvious she had an agenda. She spent the entire evening talking about how hard it was, how the baby would not let her sleep, and how she just needed a little help to get back on her feet. Then she dropped the bomb. She suggested moving back into the house just until she got organized. I shut that down immediately. No, I told her bluntly. You made your decision. You cannot come back here and act as if nothing happened. She furrowed her brows with pleading eyes. Brandon, it is not just about me. The kids need their mother. They have their mother, I replied. You are still their mom, Megan, but that does not mean I have to let you move back in here. She exhaled sharply, clearly frustrated. This is not fair to them, or to me. You are tearing our family apart. I scoffed. No, you did that. You chose to damage our marriage for this. You cannot play the victim here. That was the first time I saw real anger in her eyes. Up until that moment, it had all been sadness, guilt, manipulation, and frustration. But this was different. She looked at me like I was the worst person in the world. You are going to regret this one day, I promise you. Then she grabbed her things and left, slamming the door behind her. The following weeks were surprisingly calm. I settled into a routine with the kids, focusing on giving them as much stability as possible. Sometimes, they would ask about their mother, why she did not live with us anymore, why everything was different. I kept the answer simple. Mom and I are working some things out, but we love you very much. It was not exactly a lie. I still loved my kids more than anything, and I knew Megan loved them too in her own way. But that did not change the fact that we were now on completely different paths. She had made her choice, and I was not going to share in the consequences. That being said, I could not help but notice how much lighter I felt without her constant presence. For the first time in years, I was not walking on eggshells or managing her drama. It was just the kids and me handling things day by day, and frankly, it felt good. Then came the legal side. The divorce process officially began, and with it, another set of challenges opened up. Megan's lawyer tried to paint me as the unreasonable one, saying that I had abandoned her in a difficult time and that I was refusing to help with the baby. My lawyer responded with the facts. The baby was not mine. I had no legal obligation, and Megan had made the decision to proceed with the surrogacy despite my objections. It was a messy process, but I was not worried. The truth was on my side, and I had plenty of documentation to prove it. Text messages, emails, even voicemails. I had everything. Every piece of evidence showed that Megan knew exactly what she was doing, that I had been clear about my boundaries from the beginning. But even with the truth on my side, it was exhausting. Every time I thought I was done with her drama, something new popped up. Her family kept contacting me, trying to guilt-trip me into fixing things. Even Rachel and Tyler tried to lecture me as if they had a right to tell me how to run my life. I ignored all of them. I had already spent enough time dealing with the fallout from Megan's choices, and I did not intend to start again. Through it all, one thing became crystal clear. I was done. Done with the guilt, with the manipulation, with the constant drama. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I finally had control of my life again. And no matter how much Megan and her family tried to drag me backward, I was not going to let them. It was my chance to start over, to rebuild, to focus on what truly mattered. My kids, my happiness, and a future where I was not picking up the pieces of someone else's decisions. And for the first time in months, that future felt within reach. After weeks of back and forth, I finally got a glimpse of what my life would be like without Megan's constant chaos. It was not perfect. I was still learning to balance work, taking care of the kids, and dealing with the remnants of the divorce. But at least I felt like things were moving in the right direction. Megan stayed at her mother's house most of the time, which made the atmosphere at home much less tense. She still had her visitation days with the kids, and even though I wanted to keep the peace for them, it was not always easy. After one of her visits, the kids came back talking about the baby. My youngest son, with wide and curious eyes, looked at me and asked, "Is the baby going to live with us one day?" I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "No, sweetie," I said gently. "The baby is going to live with Aunt Rachel and Uncle Tyler." My oldest son frowned. "But Mom said she had the baby. Doesn't that mean it is like our little brother or sister?" I rubbed the back of my neck. How do you explain surrogacy to kids? How do you make them understand that their mother's decisions have nothing to do with them without speaking ill of her? Mom helped bring the baby into the world for Aunt Rachel and Uncle Tyler, I explained calmly. But it is different from when she had you guys. This baby is not going to live with us. It is part of Aunt Rachel and Uncle Tyler's family. My oldest son nodded slowly, trying to pretend he understood, but I could see the gears turning in his head. The little one, however, was not satisfied. But why is the baby not like us? I hesitated, searching for a way to explain it that made sense. Because sometimes adults make decisions that are different from what we expect, I said carefully. But no matter what happens, you two are what matters most to me. They did not push it any further, but I knew the conversation stayed in their minds. It stayed in mine for days, too. Meanwhile, I had to get my own life in order. The divorce was not just emotionally exhausting, it was financially draining as well. Megan's lawyer was demanding spousal support, arguing that she could not work because of caring for the baby. She made that decision, I said, exasperated as I sat across from my lawyer in his office. I did not agree to any of this, and now she wants me to pay. My lawyer nodded, flipping through the documents. That is what they are asking for, but we have a solid case. The baby is not yours. It was a surrogacy arrangement that she entered willingly. She has Rachel and Tyler for support. It seemed that no matter how many boundaries I set, Megan always found a way to try to pull me back in. She would call or text at random times, usually in the middle of a crisis, hoping I would drop everything to help her. One afternoon, I was at work when my phone buzzed. It was a call from her. I hesitated to answer, but something told me she would keep trying until I picked up. I sighed and answered. "What is it, Megan?" I asked, already mentally preparing myself. She was crying. "Brandon, I do not know what to do. I cannot afford daycare for the baby, and I need to start looking for a job. I need you to help me just a little, just until I get back on my feet." I clenched my jaw. "Megan, the baby is not my responsibility. You have Rachel and Tyler for that. You made this decision. But they cannot help me right now," she replied, her voice laden with frustration. "Do you not understand what I am going through?" I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my cool. "No, Megan. What I understand is that you expect me to solve your problems when you do not like the consequences of your decisions. I am not going to do that anymore." There was a silence. Then she laughed bitterly. "You really do not have a heart, Brandon." Before I could reply, she hung up. I stood there looking at my phone, shaking my head. 5 minutes later, another text came through. This time from her mother. "I cannot believe you are turning your back on the mother of your children. I always thought you were a decent man, but I guess I was wrong. How can you be so cold?" I laughed dryly. "Right on cue." Then I replied, "I am surprised by the choices your daughter made that led to all of this. Please stop contacting me about it." Over time, this became a pattern. Megan would hit a wall, and instead of solving it herself or going to Rachel and Tyler, she would try to drag me into it. At first, I responded politely but firmly every time she or her family tried to involve me in their issues. But as time went on, I realized it was not worth it. No matter how hard I tried to be reasonable, they always twisted my words to make me out to be the bad guy. So finally, I stopped replying altogether. It was not my job to save her, and I was not going to let them guilt-trip me for not doing it. Despite everything, there were moments when I almost felt sorry for Megan. Every time I saw her, she looked more worn out, as if the weight of her decisions was finally catching up with her. During a custody exchange, she hesitated before speaking. "Can we talk in private for a minute?" she asked. I hesitated but nodded. "Yeah, sure." We stepped away from the kids, and she took a deep breath without looking me in the eyes. "I just wanted to say that I am sorry," she said in a low voice. "For everything. I know I ruined everything and hurt you. I just thought I was doing the right thing at the time." I did not know what to say. Part of me wanted to tell her that it was too late for apologies. Another part wanted to ask her why she had not thought about the consequences before doing all this. But in the end, I just nodded. "I hope things work out for you," I simply told her. She seemed to want to say something else, but I did not give her the chance. I was not interested in reopening old wounds. Whatever guilt or regret she felt was her burden to carry, not mine. The divorce was long, chaotic, and exhausting. But in the end, I got what mattered most, the kids. The court ruled in my favor and granted me full custody, with visitation rights for Megan. It was a relief, but not a victory. No one really wins in a situation like this. It was simply the best possible outcome for my children, and that was all I cared about. Megan fought hard to make herself out to be the victim. Her lawyer argued that she had made a selfless decision, that she had only done what she thought was right. But the court was not blind. They saw what I had seen all along, that Megan had made impulsive decisions without fully considering the consequences, and that she had tried to use our children as a way to get what she wanted. I sat in that courtroom listening to her lawyer talk about how hard things had been for her, how much she loved the kids, and how she deserved joint custody. I will admit that for a second, I feared the judge would buy it. But then my lawyer stood up and presented all the facts, the instability, the broken promises, the times Megan had put her own choices above our family. He showed how I had been the primary caregiver for months, while Megan was barely holding her life together. The evidence spoke for itself. When the judge delivered the final verdict, I felt a massive weight lifted off my shoulders. Megan would have scheduled visits, but I would make the decisions, provide the stability, and give them the home they desperately needed. I looked at her out of the corner of my eye, and for a moment, she looked like she was about to cry. Maybe she genuinely thought she would get more, that the court would side with her, but reality finally caught up with her. Afterward, she tried to talk to me in the hallway. "I do not want things to end like this," she said with a shaky voice. "I still want to be in their lives." "That is up to you," I told her, keeping my tone neutral. "But I will not let them be dragged into the chaos. If you show up for them, great. If not, I will make sure they are okay either way." She nodded, wiping her tears. But I did not stay. There was nothing left to say. Now, it is just the kids and me, figuring things out day by day. There are challenges, of course. Being a single dad is not easy, but for the first time in a long time, our home feels stable and peaceful, and that is worth everything I had to go through. Comment. Hey everyone, stories like this always make me reflect on how important self-respect is in our lives. I believe setting healthy boundaries is one of the most loving things we can do for ourselves and those around us. Sometimes choosing peace means making difficult decisions that protect our well-being and our family's stability. Taking responsibility for our own happiness and not carrying someone else's burdens has taught me so much. Allowing ourselves the time and space to heal is truly necessary after hard chapters. You can still be kind while firmly protecting your energy and values. If you're facing similar situations, know that it's okay to prioritize a calmer life for yourself and your kids. I encourage you to think about where you might need stronger boundaries in your own relationships. You deserve connections that honor who you are and support your growth. Keep choosing peace and trust that it will lead you to a more fulfilling place. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.